Hi everyone, it's me, Lauren Bersaglio, and I'm here with another Sunday video blog. So today I'm going to be talking about therapists, and more specifically I'm going to be talking about good and bad therapists. I've had my share of both. I had to sift through some of the bad until I eventually found the good. And so I've made a little list of kind of the shoulds and should nots of therapy and what therapists should do and what they should not do. So here's my list. I'm going to start with the shoulds. First of all, your therapist should make you feel empowered. So when you go to therapy, at the end of it, when you come out, you should feel better about yourself. You should feel stronger, and you should feel ready to face the next week or the next month. I don't know how often you go, but they should make you feel empowered and build you up. The next thing is your therapist should make you feel special. And this sounds kind of like a strange thing to say, but therapists have a lot of clients and they see a lot of people, but you should never feel like you're just one of many. For the good therapists that I've gone to, I've always kind of felt like I had a special connection with them, or like they really got me, and they always remembered everything that I'd said in the previous session, and they dealt with me on a more personal level, and it made me feel special. So that's how you should feel about your therapist and the way your therapist feels about you. Next, your therapist should validate your feelings. This is a really important one. Feelings are okay. There's not really any such thing as a bad feelings. And so if you're in therapy and you're talking about, feelings of anger or sadness or guilt or whatever it might be, your therapist should validate these. And he or she should say, I understand how you would feel that way, or it's okay to feel that way, or to feel that way is normal. If it's a feeling that's been drawn out and it's becoming unhealthy, that then they should work with you to work through those feelings. But that doesn't mean they have to invalidate them. They can still say it's totally normal that you're feeling that way. I understand why you would feel that way. Now you have to find a way to let go of that anger or whatever the situation is. But they should still validate your feelings. You should never feel like your feelings are stupid or like they're wrong. The next thing is your therapist should guide you to healthy decisions. And what I mean by this is, so often we want to just ask them, what do I do? What do I do in this situation? What a good therapist should do is guide you through the thought process so that in the end you've actually made the good and healthy decision on your own. This is part of what empowers you and makes you feel empowered, because you haven't just been told what to do. You've actually been able to come to the conclusion on your own, just with the guidance of someone else. There's a big difference. And so it's really important that your therapist guides you to the right decisions to make. Your therapist should allow you to be frustrated, especially with him or her. It's very normal in therapy you're digging up a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings. Sometimes you're digging into your past, and some things will make you angry, and you might even get frustrated with your therapist. And this is normal. And your therapist should understand that and be okay with that. And they should let you be frustrated with them, because that's just a part of therapy. They shouldn't start defending themselves or fighting back. They should just let you be frustrated, and then guide you to a healthy way of letting out that frustration and trying to figure out the core reason why you're frustrated. Because typically you aren't just frustrated with your therapist, you're frustrated about what you're talking about. So it's about them accepting the fact that you're frustrated, allowing you to be frustrated, and then walking you through the process of figuring out where the core of that frustration is coming from and working through that. The next thing is it's okay for your therapist to share relevant experiences from his or her life that could encourage you, that could make you feel like you're not alone, that might be a good example of, hey, I've been through this, this is the situation. This isn't a necessary part of therapy, but I have had some therapists that have done this, and I actually found it incredibly encouraging, because I felt like I was able to relate to him or her, and I didn't feel like I was a complete failure, because here was someone that I admired and respected, who was opening up saying, yeah, do you know what? I've dealt with a similar issue in my life and this was my experience. So it's okay, and it's even a good thing for your therapist to share those personal experiences if that's what he or she feels comfortable doing. But it's not a make or break kind of thing. With eating disorders specifically, your therapist should advocate intuitive eating. This is really, really important. Um, I'm not saying that putting you on an eating plan, a feeding plan, is a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all, but the end goal should be intuitive eating and learning how to eat intuitively. I've done videos on this, so I'll just post a link to those videos below. But that's a really, really important part. You want a therapist who understands intuitive eating, knows about it, practices it themselves, and who encourages intuitive eating. And the last is your therapist should be a support to you. And this kind of seems like a given, but just to cross over into my should not list, they should be a support opposed to a friend. There's a big difference between someone being your friend and someone being your support. And when it comes to therapy, there's a big difference between your therapist being a support for you and a therapist crossing the line and becoming a friend. So it's important that your therapist is your support. So now I'm going to go on to my list of should nots. So some of these kind of are the opposite of the should, so bear with me on that. But should not, number one, your therapist should not make you feel boring. You are there, and often you're paying a pretty good dollar to be there to talk about your week or your month or whatever it is you're going through, your feelings, your experiences. Your therapist should not make you feel boring. They should listen to you, they should engage with you, and they should respond to what you're saying. Another should not, your therapist should not make you feel guilty. They should not make you feel guilty about your feelings. They should not make you feel guilty about things that you're doing, things that you're struggling with, things that you have done in your past. Therapists should never, 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 never make you feel guilty. The next thing that's on the should not list is a therapist should never tell you what to do or make your decisions for you. So this kind of bounces off the, guiding you to the right decisions. A therapist should never just tell you what to do. So if you ask a therapist, what should I do about this situation? Unless it's something really simple, but if it's something a little bit more complicated, a good therapist, like I said, will guide you to that decision. He or she should not just say, you need to do this. Or if you've come to a decision on your own, they shouldn't say, no, I think you should do this instead. Therapy is all about learning and learning to stand on your own 2 feet. So you aren't doing that if your therapist is simply just telling you what to do. The next thing on the should not list is your therapist should never make you feel judged. This is similar to make you feel guilty. You should never feel judged by your therapist. You should never, it's normal to sometimes be embarrassed or not want to share things right away with your therapist. That's normal. But you should never feel like you are actually being judged, because that is not the job of anybody. Most importantly, your therapist. Your therapist should make you feel accepted and loved, and you should feel like it's a safe place. When you go to therapy, that's supposed to be a safe place. So whether you are comfortable sharing certain things or not in that moment should not have anything to do with the fact that you actually feel judged by your therapist. The next thing is your therapist should never be frustrated with you or show signs of being frustrated with you. I talked about how it's normal to be frustrated with your therapist, but you should never leave a therapy session feeling that your therapist is frustrated with you. Your therapist should never turn you into his or her therapist. So this goes off what I was talking about your therapist sharing examples from his or her own life with you and relevant examples to what you're going through. There's a difference between a therapist saying, yeah, I've been there, I've been through that, so I want you to know you're not alone. There's a difference between that and between your therapist suddenly rambling on about things going on in his or her life and, kind of ending, not using it as a way to validate you or empower you, but instead just using you as a way to vent his or her own issues or own struggles. You are not supposed to be the therapist. You are supposed to be doing most of the talking, unless you're having a silent day, and we all know what those are like, but you're supposed to be doing most of the talking, and you are not the therapist. Next, this goes off what I was saying about your therapist should advocate intuitive eating. So on the other side of that, your therapist should not tell you to diet or just to exercise in eating disorder recovery, of course. It's one thing for a therapist to kind of encourage you to be physically active as an aggressive outlet, but when we're talking about, body image issues and things like that, your therapist's solution should never be go on this diet, try this diet, cut out these food groups, or exercise more. That should not be what your therapist advocates. Your therapist should advocate and understand intuitive eating and promote that. And finally, your therapist should be a friend, should not be a friend. So this again goes off of what I was saying about your therapist should be a support. Your therapist should not be a friend. So when you're going to therapy, you shouldn't feel like you're just catching up with a friend. It's more serious than that. Your friends are there to be your friends. And yes, your friends can be a support to you as well, but your therapist is supposed to be your support, not your friend. So I hope you guys have found this helpful. I hope that you're able to kind of look at some of these things, that they make sense, and I really hope that you found a good therapist. And if you haven't, I want you to be encouraged, because there are good therapists out there. I have had several really excellent therapists, and I also have had bad ones. So it's about being willing to move on from the bad ones. There's no point staying in bad therapy. It can actually be quite destructive sometimes. So I encourage you to be proactive and find a therapist that works. And sometimes it's not even about the therapist being a bad therapist. Sometimes you just don't have that chemistry. Sometimes it just doesn't work. And so it doesn't even mean they're a bad therapist. It could just mean they're a bad therapist for you. So I encourage you to go out and find the best therapist for you. And you'll notice a difference. And it will make your recovery so much easier. And you'll learn so much more. So I hope that you found this helpful. I hope you all are having a great week. And I will talk to you soon. Ciao.